Hey, this is Joe Gilder from Home Studio Corner. As the title of this video suggests, we're going to talk about podcast audio in this video. Now, I've been doing podcasting off and on for years and just recently brought back the Home Studio Corner podcast, which you can listen to at homestudiocorner.com/podcast. Go look it up in Apple Podcasts. It's there. Really fun stuff. But this is a typical episode for me. And let me just give you a quick listen to a little bit of the audio. This preamp with this technique, and it sounds amazing. Okay, that's recording. Producing is, hey, now if I was to ask you, what processing do you think I have on that vocal? I imagine if I had a room full of people would say things like EQ, compression, limiting, gate, ducking of some sort, probably some sort of noise reduction software, and the list would go on and on. But you want to know the dirty little secret of the way I produce spoken word audio? Here it is. I've got this fat channel on there that is doing this. High pass filter at 32 or 62 hertz, which is just barely even audible, and a single EQ cut at 700 hertz of not even quite 2 decibels. The volume fader is pushed up, usually somewhere between 3 and 6 decibels, and there is a limiter on my main output. Now, it's a nice limiter. If I mute the audio and hit play, this is the FabFilter Pro L2, but I've done this for years just using the stock limiter that comes with Studio One, and you'll notice it's not even hitting the limiter all that much. Just on the loudest parts, it smacks it down for just a second. Now, when I started doing both videos and podcasting, I got into this mode where I thought, like a lot of people think, that this is what you need to do when you're doing a podcast. You've got to put a compressor on there, just like you would if you were mixing a lead vocal. You've got to put a gate on there that's going to turn things down when I'm not speaking so we don't have any room noise and things like that. We've got to EQ it like crazy. We might need to use something like Isotope RX to remove any room sound, and then we're going to go into a limiter. And I'm here to tell you that at this point, having produced dozens, I'm episode 245 of this podcast. Simply Recording did another 50 episodes, and then add on top of that about 1,000 videos using the same approach. I'm here to tell you, you don't need a lot of processing on your audio. Yes, there are times where you're in less than perfect environments, and maybe all of these tools might make sense, but I would argue that if you just focus on A, getting it right at the source, and B, getting a decent EQ and pushing it into a limiter, that's all you ever, oops, I just hit the microphone. That's all you ever need for your podcast audio. So the first thing, getting it right at the source. Let me turn off all the plugins and you can hear what my raw audio sounds like on this vocal track. This preamp with this technique, and it sounds amazing. Okay. It almost sounds identical, right? The only difference is here on my mixer, I had to push it up louder because the limiter was adding quite a bit of volume. That's what my voice sounds like. So let's start there. And B, what you're hearing right now is the exact same signal chain as what I just played for you. I'm about 3 to 4 inches away from the microphone. I've got a large diaphragm condenser. This is the Mini K47 from Roswell Audio. It's going into the stock preamp on my Studio Live mixer. So it's just the standard preamp that comes with the mixer. And on the mixer itself, kind of the same thing. I've got a tiny bit of EQ, and that's going into a bus that has a limiter. And that's it. That's my recipe. Tiny bit of EQ into a limiter. If your raw audio sounds like garbage, then spend time fixing that. I'm in a fairly big room above my garage. I've got a lot of exposed drywall. So if you listen really carefully, if I snap my fingers over here, you probably hear the room a little bit. But on my voice, since I'm inches away from the microphone, you're not getting a huge amount of room sound. Now, I do have treatment to my left and right. I've got some bass traps in the corners. I've got some treatment around the room. Not nearly as much as I probably need, but I'm able to make it work because I talk loudly, okay? I project with my voice. I mic it from fairly close, and that's it. Run it through a little bit of EQ if you need it, just a little bit, and into a limiter. I know it's overly simple. I did a video talking about this several years ago, and somebody recently commented saying, yeah, but you didn't teach us how to mix spoken word vocals. completely missing the point. This is the point. It doesn't need to be mixed like you would mix a lead vocal in a song. Typically, talking is a lot more of a consistent sound than singing or even rapping sometimes. So this is the approach. Go as simple as possible. If you feel like you went too simple, you probably did it right. You could perhaps get away with no plug-in at all except for the limiter at the end, and it might sound amazing. So the reason I bring this up is we are in kind of a crazy time where everybody's making content in new ways. Podcasting is continuing on the rise. You may find yourself with some opportunities to either make your own podcast or to do editing and mixing for other people for their podcasts. And if you want people to say, wow, he made my podcast sound amazing, that 9 times out of 10 is going to mean that you didn't overdo it and overmix it. You left it alone and let it be. Using just a handful of tools in the right way is better than using 7 tools the wrong way. All right, that's it for me. Go find yourself some sort of spoken word audio gig, whether it's recording audio for an audiobook, editing someone's podcast, or producing your own podcast, or even your own video. Go do it, try this, and leave a comment. Let me know how it goes. All right, thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you around.